A couple of months ago, I bought this second gold Freelander 2 that's identical to mine outside to pinch its nice doors and put them on my car. It was the easiest and the cheapest way of finding the right colour doors for my car. What I'm left with is a car that's in not bad condition actually, given a good clean inside. I did get the engine running, however, it's not running very well. Having taken apart the fuel filter and taken the belly pan out, I found lots of metal and evidence of bearings. So I've decided to take the engine out, give it a good once over and see if I can fix it and get it back on the road. So wish me luck. Right, good morning my little friends. I am back, revitalised, good sleep with a missing glove. What do I do with that? And I'm ready now to kind of start making some progress on actually taking the engine away from the car itself. In the last video we actually got the engine detached from the car and it's now sitting on the floor. It is off the car or out the car. However, it's not very useful in there, is it? So what I need to do is get it onto something I can move it around with, and I have made this, and you can see through the engine frame here. It's a wonderful bit of engineering. Spent 60 quid on getting some really decent casters from Amazon, fixing them to a bit of kitchen worktop. It's bloody heavy and it should do the trick quite nicely because it gives me 360 degrees of movement. So the plan is, this is small enough to get in between the legs, the bottom feet of the hoist, so I can get that engine back up out the way. I needed to lift it maybe 6 inches or so. Put the pad on top of this, then I can lower it back down onto this and move it around once the car's out the way. It should be quite balanced on this. I've put the casters right in the corners, so fingers crossed this will work. So let's get the engine lifted up and we'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed it works. Right, that should be high enough now. Let's get that little beauty in there. So I'm just going to whack the towel down because there's an awful lot of oil and I don't really want to be traipsing that everywhere. Look at that, beauty. Right, let's just give this a bit of a wipe down as well. Out. Right, okay. That is roughly where I want it. And I think that's about where I'm going to want the engine to be, I think. So we'll see how that sits on there. If it rolls or anything like that at all, then I'll have to rejig it. Apologies, you can't really see it very well there, but are you gonna stay in one piece? Or is he going to roll backwards off it? Let's see what that looks like. Right, I'm just going to lift the car up slightly. Oh. There we go. Right. Okay, how is that engine sitting? Pretty good actually. I think we're going to be okay. Let me go underneath, you can have a look. Okay, so this is what we've got. The engine is sitting on there quite nicely. It is now leaning back a little bit, but that's absolutely fine. I'm quite pleased with that, and it seems to be quite balanced on there. So I am going to disconnect the hoist and lift the engine. Needs to lift the car up out the way, and let's see what we can get. Oh my goodness, it's still terrifying. Right, move you out the way. And there we go. That answers the question of, can you use a scissor lift to remove an engine? Yes, you can. Oh, look at that. Nearly hit the car. there we go. So now all I need to do is just fix it. Fix. That'd be much easier, wouldn't it? Wonderful. Okie dokie. Right, regroup. This is going to need to come over here somewhat. So I think what I'm actually going to have to do is take up some of this flooring, because I'm not sure I'm going to lift it onto this flooring. I don't know, I might do with some help of an Alsatian puppy and a child. But I'm going to get this hoist down first and out the way, and then we can crack on from there. Right. Okay. I obviously am going to need to use the hoist again to get the lift, get it onto the engine mount. But I need to strip it where it stands at the moment. I think it's going to be impossible to do anything any other way. Right. Okie dokie. Let's see if it moves. It does. It does move, look at that. Beautiful. That's a good skate, that is. Okay. Wow, that's quite cool actually. Kind of where I want to get to is to be able to drop the car back down again, so I can actually get into the engine bay and give it a good old clean up. But that can wait. I'm just wondering or not whether this will come onto the. No, it will not. It will just slide off. So I am going to need to remove some flooring. That's not a very interesting thing to watch, is it? So I'm going to remove the flooring and then we'll start again in a second. So progress on this strip down now. However, we do keep finding interesting things. Obviously we knew about the interesting diff. We've also just taken the lower portion of the exhaust manifold cover off to find these two just literally fell out. These were studs on the car, so I'm guessing they are no longer studding in there, so that'll be interesting. That so would have had a leaking exhaust manifold. I think it's quite a common thing on these. I'm sure I've heard about it. So the others may be the same. I'm not entirely sure yet. So I'm going to keep stripping down, but so far that's the only nasty surprise I've found. Everything else was kind of expected, so I'm just going to keep going for the time being. I've got the cat off. Got all the drive shafts off, all these bits and pieces off. I'm going to get the turbo off next. And I do want to separate the gearbox off the engine as well, because I'm going to put the engine frame mount on this side. It's an easier place to actually mount it than trying to mount it on the other side. So that's what I need to do to get that off. I need to get the diff off as well. That will need to come off from the gearbox. I think it comes off separately anyway, so that will come off the gearbox, and then they can get the gearbox off the engine. So let's just keep going. And we're still stripping down the front end, and I know it might seem a bit of a moot point because we've got the engine out, which I need to fix, but I want to try and tidy up the front of this car at the moment, and everything's kind of like stuck together, and I can't get to the radiators properly and blow them out. I can't trim all this stuff out because of this crash bar. So there's 4 17mm bolts each side on the crash bar, and it should just come off. There's nothing hanging off the other side of it. So I'm going to get all 3 off either side, leaving 1 each side just hanging up. Ooh, let's turn it the right way. And then, know where that's gone, it's fine. Right, what's hanging off there, shall we? We've got 1. Goes that way. There we go. Should be free now. We are free. Crash bar and horn. So I can give that a good old clean up outside and actually spray that because there's quite a bit of rust forming on that. Likewise with these bits, going to get them a good old scrub, get rid of all the crap off them, and I can now get through this crap. So there's no evidence of any of this leaking, so that's all good. I probably will separate them so I can blow them out, but there's no signs of any leaks, no cracks, no wet marks, anything like that at all, so it all looks pretty good. So I'm not going to bother trying to replace these. I'm literally just going to take the intercooler off, give that a good old clean, get to underneath here. There's like a panel here which holds the front clip in by the looks of it, so it holds the radiators in. They just sort of sit here in the same place here. Nothing else attached as far as I can see. And this piece here, again, could do with a bit of paint, a bit of black hammerite, sort of clean that up, black hammerite that. And that is just 3 bolts on either side. Yeah, 3 bolts either side, 1, 2 and 3, holding that on. And then the radiator will come down with that. So either I need to strap them up or I need to disconnect the radiators and bring them down. Lifts off. And this is what I mean about things not being a great design. How much crap is on there that would have stopped. So literally you're getting, well, it's got to be almost a fifth of the space of that main radiator being chopped up with crap. So intercooler seems to be doing okay, although the airflow through it would have been pretty bad. It just goes to show it's worth doing these things, isn't it? So I'll give these all a brush down, and then I'll give them a clean up outside, and I'll also flush them as well, just with tap water, should be fine. Annoyingly, I am being very gentle. Look at these fins, look. They're literally just falling apart. But they've rotted out with all that crap that's stuck behind it. Now I do wonder how much a new radiator is for the sake of this. It is tempting. This is just the front panel of the radiator. So I think this is a separate item to the main radiator behind it, which I would imagine is just as bad. So there's 2 rads here. I don't know which one is which. This one looks a little damp anyway, I must admit. And if you look along here, look at that. All that, it's all missing. That's crackers. Right, okay. So we're gonna have a quick look on Tinternet and find out how much a rad pack would be. I think the intercooler looks absolutely fine. Well, I'm just assuming it's the intercooler. Yeah, probably the intercooler. So we'll have a look and see how much a rad pack is, because everything's already disconnected from here anyway, so I think I can take it out. But I will drop the car down quickly and have a double check, and then I can get this off. The irony being, it probably would have been easier to take the engine out the front of the car. I may very well put it back in this way, because there's literally, once this rad's out, there's just this top panel. It's the only thing that's in the way. So, we'll see. Either way, I want to get this off. An idiot. Of course, it's the AC condenser, isn't it, on the front, and then the main radiator behind it. I can't get that off because I haven't removed the AC. Woo! So I think I'm left with no other option than to vent it to atmosphere illegally. No, I'm only joking. I'm going to have to phone somebody up and get this degassed. How incredibly annoying that is. I'm hoping they can do it without the engine running. And then I could take this condenser or radiator. Is that the condenser? That's a condenser, isn't it? Yeah. Off and then carry on. For the time being, it's fine. I'm just going to do something else. I'll carry on working inside the engine bay. What a pain. We've got the front clip off. So that's the condenser and the radiator off with the fans. They're both knackered. And if you're wondering, yes, I did have to disconnect the AC in the end. Thankfully, I phoned up a few people and never got anybody to come round. But I popped my little meter on and it was empty anyway. So this is obviously completely leaked out. So it was completely empty. So no dramas. I didn't have to pay anybody to come and do it, and I've not broken any laws, so we're all good. All good. Right, so what we're going to do now is remove this lower portion. As you can see here, there's quite a lot of rust, but all this white stuff, all this here, this used to be radiator. It's literally turned to dust. So I'm going to take that off. I'm going to give it a good old clean, order a new front clip of new front condenser and front radiator. I think we decided that the intercooler was absolutely fine, so I'm going to leave that. Weirdly, it's at the front of the engine, and it's the bit that's least damaged. So whether it's been replaced or not, I don't know. But otherwise, we can get cracking and start cleaning the rest of this engine bay up and making it look pretty. We're already making a bit of headway on there. Look how nice that looks back there. Oh, yes. Anyways, let's crack on. Believe it or not, I'm actually going to start putting a few bits back on this car. I've basically been degreasing the front end of the car as much as I possibly can, giving it a good old clean up. since all the rad pack's out now. I can get to everything, clean all the hoses up, check all the ends, check all the connections, all that kind of stuff. Any rust, I'm just scraping off, de-rusting. I've not got any paint to cover up with it other than etch primer at the moment, which might do, to be fair. But I'm not going mental on this because it is just an old car. However, we are now ready to get this this shield back in. So this shield here basically sits in there. And then the main heat shield actually connects to that and this piece here. So I have cleaned up all of that. Was pretty rusty. So obviously the rust collects in this foam. No, sorry, the water collects in that foam and doesn't help this sort of area. So I've cleaned off all the rust as much as possible with an angle grinder and then sprayed it with heatproof paint as well. I only use heatproof paint because that's the only silver I actually had, but it seems to be okay. I've also got some automotive foam here as well, so I cut that because there was some foam on here, which kind of like gives it a bit of a seal. It's not massive, but does stop it from vibrating around. So let's pop that back on. There we go, believe it or not, I have actually put a piece back on the car. So I'm going to carry on working my way around. I have cleaned and degreased most of these areas. They don't look clean because it's just an old car. So there's bits of like flaky paint and whatnot. So I'm going to best do what I can to get this off. But like I said, I'm not going to go crazy with this. I just want to keep it nice and clean. I'm going to get the steamer I've got out to steam clean the top of all these plastics. That works really well. So things like all these reservoirs and the filler pots and all this kind of stuff. I'm also going to take this main engine mount off here. The other engine mount, this one here on the other side, I've noticed does need replacing. So I'm probably going to get a new engine mount because there's definitely some splits in that or perishing I don't like. And again, I've got it all out, so why not get it done? So this will come off and I'll whack that in my sandblaster. I think that should come up quite nicely. Very easy job. It's not like taking off tons of stuff. It's just this surface aluminium oxidization. So that will come off. Do the same with that one. I'm not sure whether we press these out or get new ones. I think this whole thing is a new one. I don't really know. I'll double check that. Oh yeah, you can see that. Is that perishing through there? It shouldn't be doing that. I don't think anyway. It certainly doesn't feel great anyway. I'm not entirely sure, and if I'm not convinced, why not replace it? So I'll double check, see how much that costs. If it's crazy money, then I might not bother. Otherwise, I'm just going to go around and carry on cleaning. I need to order the new rad pack. So I will need to keep this all together for the time being, so I know how to put it back together again, because I need to keep the fans and the cooler and obviously all the hoses and all that kind of stuff. I do need one of these hoses because I snapped the end off in the engine somewhere on the other side. No, it's this side, down here, accidentally, when I was taking the engine out. That was the one I snapped. And then I think some of these fittings also need to stay as well. I'm not entirely sure. So I'm gonna order the new rad pack. What I did notice that there should be these two pegs that sit down onto this frame that's not here. Bear with me. Onto this frame here. And this is where they should sit into these rubber mounts here. They sit into these or these, I can't remember which ones. Now what is supposed to be on there is, in fact, these two lugs. Now, they were actually still in those rubber bungs, and they are supposed to be on the bottom of the radiator. So they were already snapped off. So this is the first evidence I've actually seen of front end damage. So I think that radiator's been pushed in at some point. It would make sense. So I'm hoping this is part of the actual radiator, not part of the fan kit. I'll have a look a bit later. So yeah, let's carry on cleaning and probably putting a few bits back on now. Do have one area that I'm not quite sure what to do with. So this here, bear with me, this is the behind the battery tray. So when the battery tray basically clicks in here, that's where it sits. Now, as you can see, this is where I had a bolt shear off, so I need to kind of drill that out. It's not massively important because there's still a couple of other fittings here and here. The battery tray holder, it doesn't wobble around, I didn't notice anyway. So I'm not too worried about that. Now that I can get off, no worries. This was literally full of water, like full. And I have now cleaned that up as best I can, but I can't get that out. I'd have to drill that out. So I kind of like, well, what's the point? So I was kind of like, I'll leave that. But then I also realised that here is the main loom trunking going through here, look. This is all the main fittings. Now there was water sitting in here and rust. There may very well be water sitting in here as well. I'm a bit conscious that I'm not having an opportunity to clean up any of the wiring back there. So I don't know whether I have to go through all of the effort of drilling that one out to pull this tray out to basically clean underneath this, or whether to just leave it. It's a really difficult one because I'm a bit particular about these things, as you may have come to learn, but I'm not quite sure because that's going to be a pig to do, to get in there with drills and whatnot. So, not quite sure about that one. We'll have to wait and see. One more small bit of evidence. Ooh. So that is the left-hand side wing that has not been done up. So I think this wing has been a replacement at some stage, or at least the front end has been a replacement at some point. So either this is new or been removed and this hasn't been screwed up. That's not me having taken that off, because I've had no need to do that. So I'm going to tighten it up now, give it a bit of a clean up, but I think it was definitely a front ender. Right, we have spent far too long messing around in the engine bay, cleaning things up and procrastinating. So today, or this weekend, this lovely bank holiday weekend, we are taking the gearbox off and we're going to get this engine on the engine frame. So it does seem a relatively straightforward thing to do. So I've put it back on the crane to get it up off the actual table thing. The first thing that has to come off, once you've got all the ancillaries off, is this. This is the main holder that holds the bearing for the driver's side, or the right-hand side drive shaft. So that holds that there. Pretty sure that's all that does. You may hold some other stuff down the bottom as well, but that's what that does. And that's just a series of bolts. You can't really miss them. There's a couple that go, there's a stud that goes on this one as well. I think there's another stud this side as well. So when you'll take a bracket off, behind it is a nut. So bear in mind, there are some there before you start levering it out. That then comes off, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bolts this side, and nothing else I can see anywhere else that holds this monstrosity, well, in fact it's loose now, on the gearbox. So I should be able to pull that off. I imagine that's going to be quite heavy. I don't know. We'll find out in a second, won't we? There we go. Oh, not a massively heavy diff, certainly by comparison to the Range Rover, but it's not light. It's not one you can put in your pocket. Right, so that is going to need to be rebuilt. May have a look at that myself at some point. But for the time being, I'm just trying to get the gearbox off. And as it stands, I've managed to get all of the bolts off, bar one. So all of these come off around here. There's like one there, one there. Just follow it round. It's quite straightforward, actually. And then there's one here I've taken off already, but there was one here I wasn't able to get to until that diff, unless I was right up underneath it. So I imagine you probably could do without taking the diff off and leaving it all attached, but I don't really know why you would want to. So this leaves just this one 13mm left holding the gearbox on. So I'm hoping we don't go and bugger something up. What I'm hoping I can do is get this up, actually balanced back on this quite nicely. Let's see how well balanced that is actually. Where's the pole? There's the pole. How is that looking on there? Not too bad. That's not too bad. Is it going to tip when I take the gearbox off? I don't think it is. So what I'm going to try and do is undo this. Because I haven't got a second way of hoisting that. I've got something set up ready to chain it onto, but I haven't got anything else. So I'm hoping this is the last thing and I can leave it off and it will stay on this table. I'm hoping it doesn't fall off. But we're going to find out, aren't we? For the sake of not crushing myself, I'm going to pop that bolt back in there. That's not the right one for there, but I think I'm just going to pop that back in for the time being. So I've got at least one there, because you can see the gearbox is all, I don't know if you can actually see that, but there is a gap opening up here. So I'm going to slide this out for the time being, get to those bottom ones. Like that. I'm understandably nervous. Right, let's get that down a bit more. Right, I'm going to leave all this lot set up ready to go so I can hoik it back up if something starts happening. like that. And then move this back slightly. Okay, and then get underneath that. Right, we should be able to get a chain on that one. Right, okay. Let's undo this. I might start trying to pry this a little bit actually and see what happens. Lovely, okie dokie. That is coming off real nice. I've lost my socket. Where's that gone? Oh, of course it's inside. It wants to roll a little bit, I have to admit, so we are going to be reasonably swift in our manoeuvres here, I think. And there we go. Right. Are you going to stay upright for me? I don't think it wants to stay upright, so I'm going to bring this around somewhere else, drop it off. Out the way. Like that. Whew. Okay. Let's get this back over here somewhere. I'm going to extend that, I think. Whew, that's a weight off. Right. So I've got the gearbox, which is not crazy heavy, but not easy to manoeuvre either. Okay, right, okay. All right, I'm going to take a breather, because that's quite nerve-wracking. We now have the gearbox off. Hang on, let's tighten that up, shall we? Okay. Okay, had a break, done a bit of reading. I need to do a bit of housekeeping. So first things first is that the starter motor goes to the other side. The aperture through the starter motor, you get to 6 Torx bolts that hold the torque converter on. Now you're supposed to actually have the torque converter come off with the gearbox. I didn't realise that. Not that it really matters, it basically says don't do this, because as you take the bolts off, this might just fall off and damage. So I'm going to do a bit of housekeeping, get myself in order, because at the moment I'm a bit all over the place, lots of bolts and whatnot. So I am going to get this pad off, I'm going to get this engine sitting and resting nicely and balanced on this plate, and then push it out the way for the time being. Okay, that's what I'm going to try and do. Okay, then I'll put some padding down, or dog bed I've got. Okay, undo these, get them to sort of kind of fall. If it does fall out, it falls onto a dog bed nice and squarely, all that kind of stuff. Shift this out the way, basically make a nice working environment. So hopefully, with the magic of YouTube and all that kind of stuff, when I do this, okay, I found my rhythm a little bit with this. So I've got 2 of these out already. They are Torx, they're 12s, M12. So it's a big old thing. You need your 22 on the main pulley and basically spin it round. I've done 2. As you do, obviously the water pump's going to pump a bit more fluid out, so bear that in mind. And there's that one. When you get to it, obviously it's going to want to fight against it, so don't worry too much about holding that. But as you get to the frame, there we go. But obviously the bolt won't come completely out like that, so then turn it back round again and then undo it from that point like that. There we go. Got it. Okie dokie. And there is the torque converter. Lean it backwards, don't tip it forwards, because all the transmission, all the fluid will come out. Okay, so now what we're looking at, I'll twist it around for a moment. I'm not on a 360 spinner at the top, unfortunately. So this is where I'm going to now attach the engine frame clamps. So I'm going to probably do, well, definitely one there and one there. I can bolt those two in. And then I'm going to need to do one there. Is that a thread? I can't tell if that's a thread or not. That's not a thread. And probably one there. And do it that way. But that's actually happened. That's worked out okay. I've still got things like the turbo on it, so I've got a bit of extra weight I didn't really need to have on here, but I will take these things off when it's on the engine frame. For the moment, I just want to get it mounted up and on, so I can flip it over and start taking it apart from the bottom, really, and find out what's actually wrong with it. Because everything I've done, I still don't actually know for sure what's wrong with it. I'm pretty certain that it is obviously main bearings, but could be it could be conrods, it could be anything really. We just don't fully know. So I've just taken the V8 off of the engine frame over there, so I'm going to now take the clamp off the actual engine itself and come across here and work out how to fix it on, and then we can get it on the engine frame. Well, that was a mission. Lots of toing and froing. I got some of these nuts the wrong way around, so they were like catch fouling on the actual frame. But it's on the frame. I've got it laying at 90 degrees at the moment, mainly because I want to get to the bottom of the engine, not the top, but I don't really want to tip it all the way upside down because it just becomes a bit difficult to manhandle. I'm going to leave it attached to the frame. There's no actual weight on this at the moment. It's all on the frame, on the actual engine stand itself. So I can now get to the bottom of the engine and actually start working out what is wrong with this car. So today we are going to be looking at getting this engine apart. We finally got it onto the engine mount, which was a bit of a pain, I have to admit. I am leaving the crane in place just to give me a bit more security, but the engine frame, this stand will actually hold it. It is a decent frame. I wanted to get to the bottom of this belly pan. I have had this off in the past. So down here, we managed to get this bottom pan off. However, what I didn't realise is that there is also a piece of a rim that goes all the way around, which you take off to be able to take up the remainder of the inside. So that is what I'm going to be doing today, hopefully, if I can get to everything. If in fact I haven't set this frame up on that rim, which I think I have. Okie dokie, we've now got the engine stand in a good place. So what we had before was where this engine stand was attached to the engine. This fourth arm was attached to this lower frame that runs all the way around the bottom of the sump. I can't remember the name of the actual piece of part is, but basically it sort of starts here, works its way around to about here, and is not that bit. That is the actual engine block. This is the actual ring that runs around the outside of it. So unfortunately I had to move this one up out the way and take this one off altogether. So I've left it hanging as well from the engine hoist, mainly because it's a heavy engine. I'm missing a location bar to sit at the top. There's literally nowhere else to put it because the two holes I would use here, or even these, they're almost lower sump parts. So what I need to do now is remove this sump. Now it will. So you'll see what I did wrong. Okie dokie. So there's the belly pan, which I had inspected. Right, so what I did is I removed this. There's like a counterbalance that sits in here. I removed everything out of the way, and I couldn't get it out from under here because I didn't realise that this piece around it comes off first. But you can see in here, there's all sorts of crap in here. Some of it's plastic, some of it is metal, but either way, there's plenty in the pickup. So what I need to do now is get these M8s, these socket caps off there, two there, one there, one there. There's quite a lot, in fact, actually. So I'm going to bit by bit go around the whole outside of this and remove all of those bolts. Right, just going to go around quickly and double check. So I'll start the top left-hand corner. Right, I think that is all of them. I can't see any others, but I'm going to have to lever this out now because it is sealed quite tightly. So I'm going to need to remember that when I go to actually do it back again afterwards. Right, here we go. Okie dokie. got a hose I did not take off. Let's balance that there. Let's take that hose off. There we go. Right. Okay, I'm actually going to leave that. There's not a lot of oil sitting there, so I'm going to take the whole thing off like that. Actually, that's quite useful. Okay. The bits I saw falling around are just shims, so that's fine. Right, this is the fun bit then. This is what we're looking at. Right, first, so cylinder 1. Okay, got connecting rod. Lateral movement there, but nothing else. Let's get that engine turned over somehow. How am I going to do that? I mean, I'll do them all anyway. There we go. Again, a little bit of lateral movement, but nothing else. Okay, so what we're going to need to do then is, it is cylinder 1. We're going to need to check that nothing's gone up into the cylinders themselves, and then pull the crank. I wonder if I can do that in place. Do you know, I might be able to do that in place. We might be able to do this in place. Okay. Okey-doke. Right, let's have a look. Okay, it's not too bad where the bearing was. Obviously there's no bearing in this at the moment. But it's not damaged that cap too badly. That's not too bad. Show that one. You see in there, there's light scoring, but nothing through a glove. So now it's this stuff. There is literally no bearing in there. So that has gone. Whoa, look at that. There is still a bit of a bearing shell on that. That literally welded itself to the crank, I think. That's not great news. Oh wow, look at that. That's cool. I mean, not cool, you know what I mean. Okay, so I'll try and get it there. So this is the crank. This is what's left of a bearing. You can see it. Oops. Sorry, I was looking at the crank, not the camera. So that there is still a bearing shell. So I think that crank is toast. I mean, that's just, it would have to be redone. Okay, yeah, that crank there. So this is where the bearing is going to be sitting against. And that is really bad. So that would have to be reground or polished out. And by the time you've done that, for these engines, they're not worth it. So, So I think that is probably that for that engine. I don't think it's going to be economically viable. I'd have to get a new crank as well as a build kit and all that kind of stuff. For a full kit with pistons and stuff, it's £1,000. I can get a TD4 engine. So this is an SD4, but I can get a TD4 engine for about £600 to £800, something along those lines. And they are the same engine. The reason why it starts like 150 PS and then to about 190, this is the SD, which is 190, is the turbo and the injectors and the map. Now obviously, if I swap the injectors over from this engine across to a TD4, I'm keeping the ECU anyway, and it will come without a turbo anyway. So I can turn a TD4 engine, which arguably has been pushed less than an SD4 engine, less power has been pushed through it through its life, and get it quite cheap and do it that way. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to mess around and spend any more time on this. I think this one is dead. I'm going to pick that bearing off because I'm just quite interested to see what it looks like, but I'm going to have to get a new engine. Kind of where I thought it would end up being anyway, but you know, it's good to be able to have a look at these things and actually tell for sure. So I'm going to have a bit of a pick, and then we're going to start putting a few things together. Okie dokie, I'm going to end this video here. We've been through it all, I think, with this engine and this car, and I've kind of done whatever I possibly can to see whether or not this can be salvaged. I have looked online since putting this back together again and seeing whether or not there are in fact cranks for sale. There are a few around. A brand new one is 800 quid or 700 pounds, something like that, and I just don't think it's worth that. Second-hand cranks that look okay, few and far between, yeah, then is it really worth me going through the hassle of actually rebuilding this when I don't really know yet if there's any other damage caused by having metal in the oil? So I'm likely to leave this engine. I think I've done enough. I've done it justice. I've done whatever I possibly can to look at something that's economical to try and repair. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish up cleaning everything else up, ready to go, finish up the subframe, get the suspension ready as well, and I'm going to buy a replacement engine. Now they tend to come as bare blocks or cylinder head block, all that kind of stuff put together, but no ancillaries, all timed up, which is absolutely fine. I've got injectors, so it doesn't really matter. I've got the turbo, all that kind of stuff, that's okay. As far as I can tell, the turbo is okay, and everything else that I'm going to be using is good too. So I think I can use the remainder of the parts that are on this engine on a replacement engine. Now I've just got to try and find one that is a Gen 2, so from a 2011 onwards, and preferably an SD, but it doesn't matter, it can be a TD4, because like I said, the only difference is the injectors and the turbo and the map itself, but the ECU is obviously staying. So that is my next task, to try and find that. But I think at this point, it's a good place to end the video. I really appreciate you sticking around and watching this. It's been great fun for me. It's been back-breaking, but I have really enjoyed digging around and finding about this engine, seeing what actually went wrong, getting through all the mess, cleaning this thing up, ready to take on its new heart and be back on the road once again. So thanks for joining me. I really do appreciate you. Please do like, share, subscribe, do those wonderful things if you feel like doing so. And I'll see you again in the next episode where we start looking at getting an engine back in this car. Thank you.